Hi, everyone. Welcome to the third part of the Energy Champions series. Um, we'll give people just a couple more minutes to filter in. Um, I will start sharing a slide deck. Welcome, everyone. This is the third part of a four-part series called the Energy Champions series, where we're diving into energy and particularly electricity. And in the first session, we talked about sort of the foundational ways that electricity gets into our homes and businesses and the ways that that's adapting. In the last session, we talked about your utility bill and primarily your utility bills from investor-owned utilities and how the utilities in Ohio make money, how the transmission system is charged, and generation. And today we are going to sort of put all of that into more practical use and talk about smart choices for your home, easy ways to save energy and money. This session is being recorded, as were the first two sessions, and you can find the first two sessions on Solar United Neighbors YouTube page, and this one will be sent out following this event as well. So today, just some housekeeping items. If you're able, we'd love to see you. So turn your camera on if you can. We totally understand everyone's at different places in the evening. We appreciate you being with us here on this evening. So totally understand if you can't put your camera on, but we do like to see you if we can. And in the chat box, while I'm going through these, if you just wanted to introduce yourself, say, where in Ohio you are tuning in from, and anything else you wanna let us know. Maybe any questions in particular about energy efficiency and upgrades you can make to your home or rental property. And then also, we will mute any guest that's being disruptive. We are going to make sure that everyone has a good experience. We've yet to do that, but it is something that we do reserve the right to do. If you'd like to connect more with the folks joining in, please feel free to put your LinkedIn in the chat box so people can connect with you. And you can use the chat box to promote any events or anything you have going on. We want to connect and get to know each other here this evening. And so tonight, we want to talk about smart choices for your homes. How can you save energy and money? And we want to create opportunity for discussion amongst ourselves about these topics and how we can move forward and help support our electric grid. And we have some special guests here tonight to present on that for us. So we're just going through the introductions right now. Please continue to introduce yourself in the chat as we go. And then, I'm just about to, I'll introduce our speakers, and they'll speak for about 30 minutes, and then we'll open it up to questions, and you can ask our speakers questions, and then we'll break out into some breakout rooms and let you all share with each other in small groups, what you learned, what you're thinking about, any other questions you still have, and then we'll wrap for about 5 minutes. We'll talk about what happened in our groups, and remind you all that there will be a fourth event coming soon. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to our speakers tonight. We have Madeline Fleisher and Andy Leber from Electrify Central Ohio. Uh, and Electrify Central Ohio is a grassroots volunteer initiative helping Central Ohio residents reduce their household climate impact through clean energy. uh, Madeline and Andy founded the group, and they promote simple but powerful ideas that using low carbon or carbon free electricity and maximizing its use at home can make a big difference in reducing greenhouse emissions in our state. When we act collectively, we can make a difference. And so, drawing on the power of community collaboration, Electrify Central Ohio shares contractor referrals, cost calculators, product recommendations, and other practical resources to help individuals create and carry out their own sustainability plans. In October 2025, the group will be launching the first ever Energy Smart Home Expo, a free event showcasing technologies, service providers, and local organizations committed to climate friendly living. We can send out more info on the expo in our follow-up email following the event. And I'm sure that Andy and Madeline will talk about it coming soon. So with that, I am going to pass it back to Madeline and Andy, and I am going to share your slide deck.
Great, thank you. And actually, I'm going to move a little closer since I think pretty much all of you are on the Zoom, so it'd probably be helpful if I'm not quite so tiny. So, hey everyone, as Karen said, I'm Madeline Fleisher, one of the co-directors of Electrify Central Ohio. And I will note that we are called Electrify Central Ohio because we are, both Andy and I are based in Columbus, and also it gives us the great acronym of ECO. But I saw in the chat that there's a number of you outside the Central Ohio area. Never fear, we will work with people all over the state. So don't tune us out. we definitely will have things to say to you for sure. All right, we can go to the next slide. Maybe. There we go. So just as context for why you should listen to us, what do we have to say that you can't find by yourself with an internet search and a little bit of time? So Andy and I come to this from different places, but basically we both have backgrounds having learned a lot about energy issues. And about 3 years ago, we met up for coffee and said, we who know a lot about this found it difficult to figure out how we could ourselves take action to transition our homes off fossil fuels and use lower carbon energy resources. And we did figure it out. And why don't we try to make it easier for other people? And that was the founding story of Electrify Central Ohio, is a cup of coffee, basically. And also a lot of enthusiasm about water heaters. So our goal is to be a nonprofit resource. You know, there's obviously a lot of people out there with sales pitches and business models and trying to make a living off this stuff. And that is good. We need those people to do things for you. I cannot install your water heater, but our goal is to be sort of a objective third party, not trying to push you into any particular direction, but just helping you understand what your options are so you can make a decision that's right for you, and ideally also helpful to the planet we all live on. So we do that in the form of just general education. We have a monthly newsletter. We do online webinars, things like that. We just email a ton with people who have questions. We also like it to be not just me and Andy. And so over the last several years, we've managed to pull in a bunch of different people who have done different things and They may not be interested in coming here and talking at things like this, but they have done things like put in home solar or install a heat pump or get an energy audit. And we try to be a connector of folks to just talk to each other about how things went, lessons learned, all that kind of thing. Um, and then we do just directly support people in actually doing things. Our ultimate goal is, of course, to make a difference. I don't know that we're going to save the world or anything, but I will note that in the state of Ohio, if you crunch the numbers, which Ohio EPA has done, between residential buildings and transportation, passenger vehicles, that's about 30% of the greenhouse gas emissions from the entire state of Ohio. So we have, a certain level of faith that if you get enough of our households to make changes off of fossil fuels, that is impactful. And so we want people to actually do that. So we will, if you live in Central Ohio, we may show up at your home, but even if you don't, only invited, I promise. But we will sort of help you look for, okay, is there an insulation contractor that can come, throw some bats down in my attic or whatever the case may be that's on your menu of options. So that is what we try to do. And as Karen said in the intro, we have a bunch of different tools and things that we try to use, cost calculators, just to help you feel as fully informed as you can before you make sometimes relatively large financial investments in these kinds of things. So that's what we try to do. Next slide. So part of where we come in on the scene is to just level set with people of what is your current state. And then our big tagline is make a plan, because you're not going to change things without a plan. Usually you're thinking about things that require a little bit of legwork at least. And so this is not going to be exactly applicable to everyone, but this is just sort of a flavor of what we can walk through with you, or you can walk through on your own. You may not need us. That is wonderful. But just to get you thinking about what does this look like. So what do we actually use energy for and spend money on? Because part of this particular session is about, are there ways to save money while you're reducing your energy use? So this is from the federal government does like a period every 4 years or so. They do this big national survey of residential energy use, and they have some figures for Ohio. And this just gives you the sense of like, okay, what should I care about? I put this together on this one. I threw in cars because people are, tend to think like, okay, my home, what can I do there? But if you really want to think big picture, actually, especially in Ohio, where we drive a lot, we don't have great transit in most places. If you're looking at your overall picture, it's your driving that's going to cost a lot of your budget in terms of fuel costs, operations and maintenance, and it's going to be a big part of your climate impact. So that is something that we try to make sure is on people's minds. But then if we can go to the next slide, if we focus in on the home, this is, if you guys are on this webinar, you may already know some of this, but a lot of folks, like, they think about their energy bill if it's double what they thought. Like, if it's an unpleasant surprise, and otherwise mostly ignore it. So they may not have thought about like, do I care about whether my lights are LEDs or whether my furnace is efficient? So this is sort of an indicator of, in Ohio, in a sort of colder climate, heating your home is going to be a big part of your energy use and your costs. Other is also a pretty big piece. There's a lot of individual variability because that's all the things that are maybe a little more discretionary. So maybe your home has like, you know, 8 TVs. Maybe your home only has one TV. Maybe if you have kids and you're sort of a modern American family like ours, you have possibly uh, 4 computers and 3 iPads, I think. So that's the sort of like assorted other things that do add up when you put them all together. And then, of course, things like you have pretty much all of us, I think, at this day and age have a dishwasher and you know, appliances for laundry. And then it's how much do you run those, et cetera, et cetera. So all that can together be a lot, even if the individual pieces are small. Then water heating, which, um, you know, most people don't think about because if you either have a tankless system, which is like the equipment's off in the basement somewhere or like stuck far away, or even if you have a tank that's probably sequestered from where you live your everyday life. But because you are often keeping a tank of water hot, that can be, for a lot of households, up to a third of your energy use. So that's definitely something to pay attention to. Air conditioning is often less than people think, just because, at least pending the full effects of climate change, our summers are, in relative terms, not too hot and not too long. I know we're coming off a couple hot weeks here and you're like, what? But compared to heating, it's going to be less. And then you have the like big appliances like your refrigerator. So that's just to give us an idea of like when Andy takes over here in a minute, like why is he talking about what he's talking about? That is where we're coming from. Of we're trying to focus on the big ticket items for you guys. All right, next slide. So as you're looking at all this stuff, what do you actually do about it? Ultimately, that's where we want to get you. And we have a sort of 4-step process that maybe looks complicated up on here with all the bullets, but ultimately is not that complicated. It's pretty straightforward, which is number 1, understand your energy use. I just gave some like typical household things. Those may be very different from yours. So you should understand what your house looks like. So look at what do you have. Some people have never looked at like, why would you? Like, what does the label on your furnace say or on your air conditioner? What efficiency is it? This is all really fun for some people like maybe me and Andy, and then other folks have better things to do with their time. But if you do care about this and want to change things, take a look. What have you got? Do you have gas cars? What is their mileage? What other appliances and things do you have? What are your behaviors and your actual patterns of usage of those things? So we probably run our dishwasher, I'm not kidding, like 15 times a week. So like that's something that I would care about, how efficient my dishwasher is and whether it is always using hot water or maybe lower temp. For those of you who are in Central Ohio and AP Ohio customers, I like to flag sort of one of these things where it's like, they have this on your account website, but do nothing to tell you it's there. They do have a function if you're one of their customers where you can go fill out like a pretty simple home energy profile of your home, where you tell them like, I have, electric heating and my home is drafty. And they sort of put that together with your energy usage and give you a little bit of a rough cut calculation of what percentage of your bill is coming from X category of usage. So it's another way to get at that question of just like, what are the things to pay attention to? Then once you've got that sort of like, what is your starting point? Think about where are you maybe wasting energy that you don't need to waste? Like the cheapest kilowatt hour is the kilowatt hour you never use. If you're an energy efficiency nerd, is what you say. And so there are different ways to do that. You can get a formal home energy audit. There is a federal tax credit of up to $150 for that goes away as of December 31st of this year. So the next few months are a good time for that. You can just do the sort of basic thing of look at how old are your appliances and what is their efficiency rating. So is your furnace 80% or 90%? Or where is it? And if it's 10 years old, it's probably not quite where it used to be. So just looking at things like that. And then there's what I'll call the like fun stuff. I saw someone posted about an Emporia View energy monitor. I didn't even throw that on there because that's like next level. But you can get like smart plugs and plug in your appliance into that and then into the wall and use an app to know how much energy is it using. You can get, as I just did for Electrify Central Ohio to share with all who want, you can get yourself a handheld thermal imaging thing, the sort of camera, and it's got the pretty colors. So you can go around your house and look like, hey, why is the line around that door all blue? Oh, I need weather stripping. Things like that. And then based on that, you can hopefully, if all goes well, identify some actual projects that you can do to reduce that energy waste. So that might be replacing an appliance with something more efficient. Per our make a plan recommendation, we often suggest you consider doing that before it really kicks the bucket so that you have time to like assess options and make sure that the new thing you want is in the warehouse ready to be installed, stuff like that. You can do the good old like peas and carrots, boring but wonderful insulation and weatherization of your home. The wonderful thing about that is that it can reduce your energy bills, but often that can pay off even more in terms of comfort. Get that one room that's always like too cold in the winter and too hot in the summer to be more in line with the rest of your home because you have to live there. And then think about, are there things that you can do with what you have to just waste less? So Ohio, we don't have a ton of sort of supportive policies and incentives on this. There are some smart thermostat rebates out there that you might be able to take advantage of. I always like to say, everything's a computer these days. And so the smart thermostat is, I'm sorry, smarter than us. Like you may program your thermostat at the wazoo, but they've got some gosh darn AI algorithm in there that is going to like maximize your HVAC energy usage. So those tend to pay off, especially if it's Energy Star rated. And then smart plugs, those are fun to play with an app. So we had our coffee maker on one for a little while, which was probably pointless. But I could just turn on the coffee maker when it was time in the morning. And then just behavior change, things like when you're running your laundry, is it a load that can go in, in cold or warm water instead of hot water? Other things to just manage how you're using energy from day to day. Those can definitely add up. And then, yes, Ecobee, those are getting good reviews. And then last but not least, once you've got those projects identified, the hard part is often actually getting them done. And so that's where we come in. We are free. Our only limit is really just whether you want to take the time to type us an email, electrifycentralohio@gmail.com. And then one thing we try to help you with, but also just generally is out there is just looking for what resources are there. So federal tax credits. I mentioned the one for energy audits. There's a whole raft of them that go away as of December 31st. So look at all of those. And then things like smart thermostat rebate programs and so on and so forth. And so that was like the 10, 30, 50,000 foot view. Andy will tell you in a little more detail.
All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Andy. How much time do we have? How are we doing here? Doing great. 10 minutes. All right. So we are going to be talking about the Emporia View, actually. I am going to walk you through just a few hors d'oeuvres of things that you can do that follow the list that Madeline presented. But the first thing, following that little table about checking your consumption, and the place to start there without any other information that you might have is just to look at your electric and gas bills. So typical Ohio home uses between 10 and 11,000 kilowatt hours of electricity per year and 1,200 CCF of gas per year. Now, if you're like us and you've been transitioning off of fossil fuel appliances to electric appliances, the distribution of that will change. I'm pushing closer to 20,000 kilowatt hours a year, even though our home's relatively efficient and we're zeroing out our gas bill. But if you just look at that, you can get a sense of how much room is there for me to reduce my usage. And also you can just see things that don't pass the smell test. I was recently in a house that was probably using about 50% more electricity than it should have based on their usage. And I think we discovered that there may have been some electrical wiring problem in that house. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Okay, so if you want to drill down further, particularly on your electric usage, you can put a smart plug on a particular appliance. And there's many different things that I ran around the house and tested out. So for example, we just always had our entertainment system with our TV and sound system in the basement, and we would just kind of leave it on. And then I realized that the subwoofer alone was just, when it was idling and nothing was on, except it was turned on, nothing was playing, it was drawing 40 watts continuously, which is $67 a year at current electricity prices. You can plug in your fridge. If your fridge is old, it might just start creeping up in its electrical usage, dehumidifier in the basement, any kind of appliance that you're just curious, how much is this drawing when I leave it on? And should I be turning it off? And these things, if you buy a smart plug, you want one that has energy monitoring. This brand right here is Emporia, and it fits in the Emporia ecosystem. So like in my house, I have an Emporia EV charger, Emporia smart plugs, and then the Emporia View, which I'll tell you about in a moment. So we can go to the next slide. So here we go. This is the Emporia View. There are different levels at which you could do monitoring, but this is all just to give you a sense of what your current usage is like and possibly identify things that are way more than they should be. Now, retail, if you get a system that monitors, it monitors individual circuits in this electrical panel. I did not show you my own electrical panel because it looks like a rat's nest in there, and this one is much tidier. But you can technically do this as a do-it-yourself install, but you are working around high voltages and high amperages. So if you have any hesitation at all, or if a family member has a hesitation at all, if you're a little overconfident, hire an electrician. They can install it. I just didn't tell my wife that I was doing it. Just kidding. I'm still here. So what you do is you hook up these little things called current transformers around the line that goes to each circuit and into your home. And those are those little white things. They just clamp around the wire, and then they monitor your electrical usage. You can also clamp them around solar inputs, which is what we have in our house. And then if you advance one slide, I think it'll pop something up here. There's an animation. There we go. This is the app. So if you look, it has what our net usage was for this particular day. This was 2 or 3 days ago. We had basically no net usage, less than 1 kilowatt hour because it was sunny out. We have 2 different solar arrays. That's a long story. But the top part is stuff that total what we drew in from the grid and what we sent out to the grid. But you can see our garage used 8 kilowatt hours. I don't know why the car charger says, oh yeah, we have another car charger in the garage. That's just part of the garage. And then you can see our dehumidifier. Our furnace looks weird, but that's actually the blower for our air conditioner, and then so on. And you can just get a sense of at each circuit level and for individual plugs. So that dehumidifier is just a plug that integrates with this ecosystem. It gives you a really good sense of your usage. Just one example from when I set this whole thing up, I discovered there was a circuit that shouldn't have had anything drawing electricity, but it was drawing 20 watts. And that could be an electrical problem that could maybe lead to a house fire. So I was glad that I detected that, and I just cut that wire. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So Madeline was talking about before about thermal imaging cameras. And this is actually, these are pictures from when I paid for an energy audit, which we learned a lot about the energy usage in our home. But if you want to do it yourself, you can either borrow our thermal imaging camera or buy your own, but don't buy it just for one-time use if you're trying to save money in the long run. You can find them on Amazon for $150. And what's nice about them is, as you can see, this is our mudroom. I think it was about 40 degrees outside, and those dark spots around the door were just massive intrusion of cold air. You want to do this when there's a differential in temperature between indoor and outdoor. Otherwise, you won't see anything useful. But this was my daughter's room on the left side, which didn't have insulation in that wall. And we ended up addressing that later on. We can go to the next slide. If you don't want to spend that money, you don't actually need the pictures. You can get this infrared thermometer. This is what we bought in my house. This is actually a picture of one of our bathrooms where last winter, when it was 10 degrees outside, our toilet stopped having water and the pipe froze. And we were wondering why that could possibly be the case. So I took this $19 infrared thermometer. It still tells you the temperature in different spots. You just have to test it in many different places if you want to get a full picture of what's going on. And why is my floor 52 degrees? Well, it was missing, we were missing insulation on the exterior wall over there. So we took care of that, and our toilet doesn't freeze anymore. And we are probably saving money on our heating and cooling. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. Once you figure out where you are losing heat and or cool air, you can take the steps to address it. These are pretty basic steps. It's often hard to hire someone to do these things because there's just not a lot of profit in it for a contractor. But you can do it yourself or find someone handy. I am terrible at creating a neat bead when I do caulking, but I do it anyway. And I hope that our guests don't judge us. Our house is so messy anyway, they probably don't notice. But on the exterior walls, you might be quite surprised to see how much intrusion you get through little cracks in your floor molding. That's especially important if you live in a house like mine that was built in 1929, where you physically cannot insulate those walls because they're lath and plaster and there's no void to insulate. And if we did, we'd end up causing moisture issues. So if you go and seal all the cracks, it prevents cold air intrusion in the winter, and it can make a difference. Now, we have to be realistic. The estimates for like doing all of this do-it-yourself stuff won't change your energy bill by more than 10%. But these are steps that you can take to save money. Weather stripping, sorry? Every little bit. Yeah, every little bit helps. So the middle image is one of the things that we put on that door that I showed you in our mudroom, and then weather stripping around windows as well. You can buy all these things in Home Depot or online. And then there's really great stuff to show you how to do it on YouTube or This Old House, that you can just teach yourself new skills to make you popular at parties. So we can move on to the next slide. Okay, landscaping is something that people don't often think about, and this is a long-term solution. You're not just going to plant a tree and then have it be mature a week later. We often plant trees for future generations. but trees are important for so many reasons. If you're interested in climate, you're probably also interested in our local wildlife and, birds, bees, and so on. So planting trees is important. I know this is Solar United Neighbors here, so don't plant a giant tree that blocks your south-facing roof. But the general approach is if you appropriately place trees around your home, you can lower your HVAC bill by about 25%. And that's huge, especially with the increasing energy prices that we're all faced with. So there's a little bit of planning to this. So you would want deciduous trees, the ones that shed their leaves in the winter, on the south, east, and west facing sides of your home, as you see in this picture here that I got from that link that I pasted in there. I don't remember what the name of that organization is actually, but it's a nice picture. And the leaves will shade your house in the summer and reduce your air conditioning. But then when those leaves drop and it's cold, the sun can shine through the branches and warm your home a little bit in the winter. For the north-facing side, it's really, people really underestimate how much windy weather can really impact your heating bills. So if there's a strong wind bearing on your house, it's going to push air through any lack of ceiling that you have. So the suggestion here is to put evergreen shrubs on the north side of your home, which creates a wind barrier and reduces penetration into your home in the winter. And right now, there are free trees available through Green Columbus. If you go to that website, they're about anywhere from 2 to 8 feet tall. But remember, we're planting for the future. Okay, next slide. Oh, that's right. So these were just a few examples to squeeze into that half-hour time window that we are here for today. We've got a lot more, and you've probably read about many other examples for energy-saving tips. But that's a start. And we've got other resources we can certainly share with you all if you follow up with us. And thank you for your time. And we're here for Q&A.
And I will add that I totally forgot, my bad, to put in a slide on this. But as Karen mentioned, if you're in the Central Ohio area, we have our Energy Smart Home Expo on October 25th, which will be a showcase for all kinds of different options to reduce energy use, be more efficient, also clean energy, and all the things you might be interested in. Chance to come and check it out. And there's more info on our website. We'll put it in the follow-up email. Perfect.
Yay. Oh, thank you, Jesse. So we have time for questions?
Yep.
I think that there were several comments during the talk that maybe we would have something. We could pop up the comment thread. Maybe we'll have.
Karen or Jesse or Jimmy, could one of you guys read any questions to us?
Or even relevant comments that.
Certainly. Yeah. So someone mentioned balloon framing. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if you want to elaborate on what that is.
Yes. If you want to do work on an old home, then there are ways you can insulate the first floor, but it will cost money. There are several options to weigh, and right now we are choosing none of those. Yeah.
I will say, if you, I think Andy's house doesn't work for this because it's stucco, but if you have siding, if you have to replace the siding, is a good time to look at insulation, because that's you're getting in there anyway. And that's going to be your best opportunity to try to beef up, look at even, and then potentially beef up what you've got on the insulation side.
We can respond to Lynn's question. It's a really good one. So how do you weigh trees versus solar? And I did have, when we were putting in our first solar array, I did have a solar contractor recommend that we cut down a tree. I said, we're not doing that. But the truth is that a solar array really does generate a lot of electricity. So this is all a personal choice, depends on how much land you have. But one thing to consider is based on whether your home is a 1-story or a 2-story, you absorb a lot of solar energy just on your siding alone. So if you can block the light from reaching your siding without reaching your roof, that will help to some extent. Solar panels themselves, and I'm sure Mariah can speak to this, they are raised a few inches above your roof, and they actually do reduce the solar mass effect that increases the heat inside your attic. So I don't know if Mariah wants to say anything more about that, but it does have some impact on your energy bills.
Yeah, I'll scoot you a little bit closer so that we can kind of share mics. But your energy efficiency increases because you've got that air gap. So it's kind of an air insulation value that it adds whenever you have solar. So on hot summer days, we see about a 10 to 15 degree difference in our attic temperature versus what we had prior to having solar on our roof. We have a ranch, so we have a very large roof footprint. It makes about a 20-degree difference on our garage because it didn't have that attic drop down ceiling and it was just straight, heating the garage up. So we went from needing to add additional ventilation in our garage to not having to whenever we went solar. We don't see quite as dramatic of effects in the winter, but it does help with that as well because those panels are wanting to absorb that sunlight. So they're black, they melt the snow really fast. Your roof stays just that little bit warmer because it's got that air gap and it's not directly just sitting there with ice and snow built up for quite as many hours on it. So, yep, solar helps out with that.
Great. Mariah, while you have the microphone, we have a question about the status of community solar in Ohio. And so I thought I'd send that to you.
Yeah. So today I was at the State House. We had proponent testimony. So we had about 50 submitted written testimonies in favor of community energy. It's an all-encompassing bill, so it frames up for any form of energy to come onto the grid at 10 megawatts or less if it's on a regular standard site, and then 20 megawatts or less if it's on a brownfield or site that we're helping to offset some of the, environmental costs of. We expect to be through the House by Thanksgiving. They've put us on a fast track. So they're pushing this bill along. It's looking pretty good. Our big push and our fight will be in the Senate. So I look forward to seeing y'all turn out in 2026 to help us out with showing them there's some people power behind this. But we send out communications regularly on it. I'll make sure that some information is looped in on our emails whenever that goes out to follow up on this in a couple days.
Great, thanks.
That's exciting.
And then we have a question about, yep, I think Andy, maybe you see it on the.
Yeah, I just want to follow something that might have been on some people's minds that we did not put in our slides for a reason. So someone might be wondering, should I get light colored roof shingles and paint my house white to reduce thermal gain in the summer? In the southern states, that is a good idea. In Ohio, it's kind of a wash because, as Madeline mentioned before, we actually need more energy to heat in the winter than we do need to cool in the summer. So it's not really going to make a huge difference. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that while I was on the topic. So when we talk about planting, that helps you both in the summer and the winter. Something that will help you all year round is going to be a bit of a double-edged sword and won't, as a net, necessarily help. So with the next question, though, does it help to select a 100% renewable energy provider through the Apples to Apples website, the Ohio Energy Choice Program? And we definitely have opinions about this. The first thing I will say is, if you are in there every month shopping for electricity, you will save money compared to the standard service offering. However, there was an interesting article in the Dispatch, the Columbus Dispatch, showing that on average, people who choose through that website spend more money. And it's because they don't stay on top of introductory offers, cancellation fees, and all sorts of things. So it's a lot of work to save money. And that's the first part. And the second part is that many of us are already in an area where we have an energy aggregation, an electricity aggregation that your leaders are doing their best to marshal the collective strength of many households to essentially collectively bargain for your electricity rates. And you can check, we can help you find out if you're already on an aggregation plan. But in general, if you went for brown energy, it's always a little bit cheaper than 100% renewable electricity, but there's really not that much of a difference overall. I don't know if Madeline wants to add anything.
Yeah, I'll add two things. One, if you're not on an aggregation and you are interested in utilizing the shopping option, this is not an endorsement, but there is a company called Arbor where they will do the shopping for you. And as Andy was noting, there can be little tricks and traps in these like changing prices and fees and things, and they sort of will manage that. So, while aggregation is great, is sort of a next level because it's community based and it's getting a bunch of households at once, and you get that bulk purchasing sort of power. That Arbor program gets you a little bit of the having an expert do your shopping for you piece of it, which can be helpful. And then the other thing I'll say is just in terms of, does it help? When you pay for 100% renewable offer, you are helping support renewable energy somewhere, probably in the United States, but it probably could be in Texas or a wind farm in Oklahoma or somewhere pretty far away in terms of actual geography. Unless you are getting 100% Ohio renewable, it is unlikely that you are actually paying for renewables that will then help push off fossil fuels from our electric grid. So yes, it's all to the good, but just to be realistic about what that accomplishes, we're not gonna suddenly turn Ohio 100% renewable by doing that. That is a separate task that will probably take a lot longer. Questions?
I believe that's.
I think we're good. Thank you
Yeah.
all for listening.
Yeah, thank you.
So I think our next step will be to break out into breakout rooms and chat some more just with each other on is there anything you learned, anything you want to share, and so Jimmy, whenever you want to put people into breakout rooms, go ahead. Breakout room was nice to chat with folks. Does anyone have anything they want to share that they learned from others in their breakout rooms? Richard, if I can call on you, you were telling us about your experience vetting different solar installers. If you wanted to share that again about the importance of vetting the company that you end up going with if you were to decide to install solar.
You're on mute, Richard.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have 3 properties here, northeast central Pennsylvania. Actually, the farmhouse I'm sitting in next to the chimney was built 201 years ago.
Wow.
And our insulation in our attic is made of vermiculite. If you know what that is, that's like mica. Vermiculite has an insulation rating of R2. So we were burning oil, fuel oil. The house was built in 1824, 201 years ago, and electricity was put in 1957, and it's been running oil ever since. And in 2022, we spent $25,000 on energy, oil, propane, electricity. So my idea was put in solar and replace all that cost and pay it off in 8 years. And that's working pretty well. Had to find the right person, the right outfit. I went with Lumina Solar out of Allentown. And I had 8 people. I had an Excel spread. I'm a retired nuclear safety engineer, so I do everything in Excel. I had an Excel spreadsheet with pros and cons, like how many years have you been in business? How many employees? All the standard. Go ask ChatGPT and they'll give you the full list of vetting questions. But I found that clearly half of the companies did not know anything about solar. They were mostly Joe's Roofing and Painting and solar. They added on the and solar and figured if they could walk on a roof and use a crescent wrench, that was good to go. Don't go with them. Go with an outfit that has some experience. It makes a difference. The one thing that really got my attention was, and I use this demonstration, if I buy a REC panel, 405-watt panel for $500, I buy 90 of them and I put them on the roof. I get 98% on my barn roof. If I take that same panel and turn it to the west or to the east, where I wanted to put them, I originally wanted to put them on a different building. And the Lumina Solar guy said, no, 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 don't do that. And he gave me the calculations. At our latitude in Pennsylvania, if you take that exact same panel and turn it to the east or the west, you get 72%. Now, over 25 years, that's 28% of energy lost. You never get it. You'll never get it back. So if you're going to buy solar panels, put them facing south. If you put them on the ground array or something. If you can afford to do it, put them in not quite south, but that's something that I did not understand until I got really into it. So
That's really, really helpful. One thing I'll add is that I don't want to dissuade people entirely from putting solar on an east or a west facing roof. The cost of electricity has risen so much that we have some good calculators. I know Solar United Neighbors has some good calculators, but you might break even on a south facing installation in about 7 or 8 years now. Whereas on an east or a west facing installation, it could be 9 or 10 years. But it also depends on your roof pitch. So
yes,
if you
yes.
have a really steep roof pitch, then that makes a really big loss for east and west facing. If you have, let's say, a 312 roof pitch like we do in our home, then the relative loss in production would be close to about 15%. For west facing versus south facing. So it just depends.
Right,
Uh,
oh, absolutely. You're absolutely right. You east west is fine if that's what you have. Just remember in doing your calculations that you got to factor that in there. That's all. And then
100%. Yep,
it'll tell you whether or
absolutely.
not it's financially.
Yep.
Back in the good old days when we had all the tax breaks and 5 years to write them all down, made it a lot easier. And my return on investment was quicker. So now it'd be lower. It's still cheaper than buying electricity from the utility. And I know it's
Oh,
cheaper than
yes.
burning oil or propane or even wood. I did wood for 1 year, 3 cords.
One thing we like to tell people is that now that the 30% credit has gone away, um, if you're like my family, we went solar the first time in 2019 with the 30% tax credit. If you do it today with today's energy rates, and without the tax credit, you have a faster payback period,
Yep.
break even period. And then the other piece is that a lot of installers, in anticipation of the lost 30% credit, are cutting their installation costs by about 15%.
Right.
So
It'll
all
make
is
up.
not lost,
Right.
but yeah, lots to consider for sure.
Yep.
All right, well, I'm just realizing I was so interested in the conversation, we went 5 minutes over. So thanks so much, everyone, for such a wonderful conversation. Thank you to Madeline and Andy. Hopefully anyone here in Central Ohio, we will see you on October 25th. I will, Mariah, did you have something else? I see you.
QR code, could you show
Oh,
you've
yes,
got a
of
slide about
course.
next time's registration. Thank you.
Yes. So this isn't the last time we see each other, hopefully. We will have our fourth session coming up. And if you'd like to sign up for that, you can hover your cell phone over the QR code here on the screen. And the information will also be in our follow-up email. But if you want to do it right now, go ahead, hover your phone over the screen here and take advantage of that QR code to sign up for the fourth of our 4 sessions, Neighborhood Power, Working Together for Energy Savings. So we hope to see all of you there. Thanks again for taking the time on an evening here, fall evening, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.